Hi, welcome to my Dosha Clock explanation. I wanted to give you a background around the idea that Ayurveda talks about the cycle of nature and how that cycle is something that if we can sink into, we can find some of the efficiencies in that cycle. So consider this circle as something that we would travel around once in our lifetime. We could travel around the circle once in a year, going through each of the seasons. And we could travel around this circle once in a month. We can travel around the circle once during our sunlight hours and once during the moonlight hours. These three words are basically words that describe a collection of qualities. And they're qualities that are prevalent during certain parts of our lifetime, certain parts of our year, and certain parts of our day or night. So as we go through this, I'm going to explain how those qualities affect you and how you can learn to observe them with a little bit more awareness. So if we were to start going around the circle once in your lifetime, let's start here in Kapha season. So Kapha is the season of childhood. It is childhood. It is growth. It is the season of growth. It is made up of qualities that are all catabolic. They're all qualities that promote growth. So think about the season of childhood as being one where we are gaining weight, we're growing taller, we're getting more knowledge in our world. Like there's lots of growing happening in every kind of part of us, our mental being, and lots in our physical body. They would even say that Kapha is the dosha of the body. It's the one where the most body work is happening. And so the season of childhood, when we go through it, we are adding cells to the body. The body is developing, changing, growing, coming into maturity from this really tiny seed all the way up. When we switch into Pitta season, Pitta starts to be defined as adulthood. And it's almost when you're done the growing piece of life, and now you're moving into the doing piece of life. So the Pitta stage is when you kind of get your job and you start a career. Maybe you're going to go to school and get educated. Maybe you get married. Maybe you have a family. Maybe you build a home. But there's lots of transformation happening. It's like you're taking your grown-up self and you're starting to do life. You're starting to actually transform your ideas and your thoughts and your passions into something tangible, right? Something that we can create around us. So everything that you look around you and see right now, this is what Pitta has created in your life with you. Your home, your family, your career, even your health, things like that. So that is your Pitta stage of life. And it is governed by that idea of transformation. I wonder if my words are going to look very good. And if we were going to say what part of life this is your digestive kind of system. So if the Kapha part really cares about your body, then the Pitta part cares about you digesting life. So we think about food and how we digest food. This Pitta stage part of your world, Pitta qualities are where we can digest things. Everything that comes into your life needs to be digested regardless if it's food. So I think all experiences need to be digested as well. When we move to Vata, we are now moving into, I don't know, let's call them the golden years. Some people that I talk to get insulted when I call them the senior years. But it's almost when the doing part of life doesn't have to be quite so turned on. if we're lucky, and I guess if we're lucky in our culture, then we don't have to do that doing part. I think in older cultures, more indigenous cultures, possibly even poorer cultures, when you move into this golden stage, then you might move into communal living. You might already be in that stage where there's a recognition of the wisdom of elders. And if we could have that, that would be sort of what we're looking for, is when you move into that, I'm an elder now, and you have that elder wisdom, and you get the reverence and the respect and the acknowledgement that you might not necessarily get when you're in these other two stages. This is the quadrant where we talk about the mind. So this is where the emotions, the mental processes, the knowledge base is starting to really accumulate. And in your time, in your lifetime, this golden years is when you get to ruminate more, when you get to play more, when the product of your day does not have to be transformation. You don't have to make something. You don't have to be making money. The purpose of your day doesn't have to be to transform into something big. So the purpose can change here to be more creative, to be more personally fulfilling, things like that. So you don't necessarily have to be on and doing, which tends to dictate this pitta stage of life. So think about that in terms of moving through this cycle once in your lifetime. If you were going to talk about this in terms of a year, and look at this cycle in terms of a year, then we would talk about the Kapha season, childhood being spring. Spring, summer I've got up there, and then fall, winter is this Vata season. So let's talk about the qualities that happen. So every spring, what happens is just like a child outside, you plant seeds and they grow. We watch new growth happen every spring. We watch trees go from being in their winter state to having little buds, beautiful green leaves, our favorite color here in our northern climate. It's so exciting for us every spring to sort of feel the change from cold temperatures to slightly warmer temperatures. It's still cool, and yet it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more light. It's a little bit more growth oriented. There's more warmth than there is in the winter season. So in this spring season, that is the season where this growth promoting is happening. We might find that the outside has got a little bit more wetness to it. It's when the rains are coming and the earth and water are mixing together, and it's kind of muddy and mucky. And there's that's just part of what's happening in nature. In our own bodies, when we go through spring, we might find that same earth water texture is showing up in our bodies as mucus, as allergies, as spring colds, things like that, where we've got a little bit of congestion going on. Where we live, so here we are in a northern climate, just east of the Rocky Mountains. Spring is short. So one thing about this graph is that it makes it look like our year is really evenly spaced out. And that's not true where we live. It probably is different in every place in the world. So if you lived close to the equator, you might find that the pitta season is the biggest, and that you really have to mitigate the qualities of that season in order to stay healthy. If you lived, I'm going to say coastal, like if you lived in Seattle or Vancouver, where spring got to be a little bit longer, then you might find that the Kapha season of like humidity and cool weather might be the qualities that you had to sort of watch and create self-care around those qualities. Where we live, this Vata season is fall and winter, is cold. Its key qualities are cold and hard. And those two things, we can feel those qualities building in us over the winter season. Because if we were to sort of take this, I'm going to regret drawing on my pretty graph, but it would almost be like Vata is taking up both these quadrants, and then, Kapha and Pitta was somehow taking up this quadrant up here. And that's kind of what our chart would look like, sadly. So because of that, what happens is that there's not a lot of necessity for many of us to do a lot of specific self-care in a season that only lasts like a small piece of the pie. What we're finding right now, so heat wave here in Canada is happening, is that usually this Pitta season, we've even got a joke here that says, summer, we have two seasons, winter and stampede, which is a 10-day celebration in July, right? So when we have a joke that's like that around where we live, it means that this season is such a small sliver that we don't usually tend to think about what kind of self-care we need to do in Pitta season. What's happening this year, though, is this extended heat wave is making us go, okay, hang on. I actually do need to shift and change the rhythms of my life to accommodate Pitta season, because it's harsher this year than we usually experience it. And we might be finding things like we need to get up earlier and get our productive part of the day done before 10 a.m. because it's so hot during this Pitta time of day that we can't be outside being productive. We can't be, in our normal rhythms because the heat is just zapping us. You might be thinking about cultures that have that siesta happening in the afternoon, and then it starts to make sense to us. It's like, yeah, I can see that in a really hot climate, as you get to that hottest part of the day, that your choice would be to go into a cool home and just rest and have downtime. Because it's such a rare thing for us. I think we struggle around how to handle heat, and we're not used to it. So some of us just sort of flake out. We can't get anything done. And some people push through and, we start experiencing sunstroke and things like that. But interesting that usually Pitta season wouldn't be something that here we spend a lot of time mitigating. And same for our Kapha season. It's short and sweet. Sometimes it feels like that Kapha season is like a teaser. It's like we get a little bit of spring and then back to winter. We get a little bit of spring, back to winter. And it just feels like we just keep getting kicked back to winter. Anyone who grew up here knows that you don't put away your winter clothes too early in the season, because if you do, Murphy's Laws, you're going to need them again. Which brings us to the Vata season and where we've chosen to live. So if you don't live in the vicinity of southern Canada, I'm going to say kind of even in the middle, if I can be broad, where there's not a lot of humidity, where winters are long and the temperatures are cold. We all know that from for sure November 1st to March 1st, November, December, January, February, those 4 months we know for sure are going to be full on winter. We also know that October can kick in there. We know that March can be a month, and we even know that sometimes here April can be a part of that Vata season. So we could have up to 7 months of winter. I'd say for sure we're going to give ourselves 6. And because of that, we're better. We're better at creating a schedule that works for winter season. We're better at knowing that we need to give ourselves 20 minutes in the winter before we leave our homes to go outside and start the car and scrape off the windshield. We know that we need to dress warmly. We have the clothes to dress warmly. We know how to keep our homes heated. We prioritize warmth in the winter, and we're good at creating warmth with our food. We're good at creating warmth in our bodies. And that's smart. Right now I think what we're doing right now in our Pitta season is we're noticing our inability to know the rhythm of this. We've only ever dealt with heat, 1 or 2 days, and then it's free, it goes away again, we're back down to totally manageable temperatures, and then this heat comes back for a day or two. And what we're noticing is we don't have rhythms around how to deal with this heat. So we're learning those rhythms. Okay, so if we start thinking about going around this clock once during sunlight hours, once during moonlight hours, I think I'm going to skip monthly today. Just feels like that little bit of information. Think about your cycle, the growth part of your cycle, the PMS part of the hot, when you're feeling hot part of your cycle is the Pitta piece, the PMS part, and then the Vata part is when your body is shedding, when your body is letting go. That's part of that Vata quality. I've put numbers here, 6, 10, 12, 2, just to give you an idea of a clock. I want you to now sort of see the face of a clock here and these different qualities imprinted on the face of the clock. So this Kapha time of day is 6 in the morning till 10 in the morning. It is when you are in your body mode. It's when you're in your growth mode. It's when you wake up and you're ready. Your body is strong and capable, and it needs to be moved, right? There's some movement necessary that first thing in the morning. That movement could be you drinking water, so you get movement through your digestive system. Could be movement in your physical body. It's even this beautiful time to do meditation. You might even think about meditation kind of sliding in the last part of this Vata moment in the day. Okay, so think of body mode. When we shift to Pitta mode, this 10 to 2 is when your personal digestive fire is the biggest. So it's when you have the capacity to digest your food with the most efficiency. So if you were to choose to eat your biggest meal of the day in this window, your body would go, perfect, I've got the fire burning, I'm ready to go, bring it on. I can digest and I can sort nutrients and I can feed the tissues of your body with efficiency right now. Then we move into this Vata time of day when we move into mind mode. Now, if everything's working perfectly in your world, you might find that this is the time of day where you've got creativity and you've got a little bit of like itchiness that you could do things that are fun, exciting. You can explore ideas. You can get into that kind of stuff. You might find that what you want to do is really, I don't know, like this time of day when you're doing work, the work that you can do in this kind of day is really task-oriented, specific sort of work. And then this is the block of time where if you scheduled blocks of time in here, this is where you could be doing like writing and journaling and fun things. I don't know, maybe it's even when you're the time of day where you're saving the work that you're doing, whatever job you do, maybe you save the jobs that you do so that this time of day doesn't have to be so task-oriented as the other times of day, perhaps. When we move back to 6 p.m. into this Kapha time of night, then what's happening is now when the sun rises, we have that idea of serotonin being released, the hormone of serotonin being released into our body that asks us to rise. And then as we hit that time of day at the nighttime, that's when the melatonin comes into our body and asks us to slow down. So as you move into this evening, you are also moving into body mode again. Stop trying to do work. Stop trying to do things with your mind and start getting into your physical body. Summer season, it's a great time to go for walks, bike rides, be outside, golf, hike, whatever you need to do. The light is there in this season to be able to go outside. And where we are, we should be taking advantage of that. Winter season, it's pitch black. Once you get to 6 p.m., winter season, you're going into this stage and it's dark, pitch black, and cold. So your winter routines in this time of day need to be much different than they are through the spring and summer times of year. When we pass this 10 p.m. mark, we go back into Pitta. And if you think about that in terms of a fire turning on in your body, the goal of the nighttime fire turning on in your body is to do a deep clean. So it's almost like the kitchen staff closes, the kitchen staff's like wash the dishes, everything. They're walking out of the kitchen, food's all put away, and the night cleaning staff come in. And they're going to wash the floors, and they're going to clean windows, and they're going to do stuff that's unrelated to cooking and creating and cleaning up the food. Here's where we have to start talking about eating, is in this 24-hour cycle. So this nighttime cleanse, the other way I think of it is that if you think of those old-fashioned hearths, and they, stock them all day long, keep putting wood on the fire, and then in the evening you let that fire die out, put your last log on, let it die out, and then when you wake up in the morning, you sweep out all the ashes and you start a new fire. So that's what's trying to happen here, is this idea that we're going to sweep everything out, clean up everything we don't need, and start fresh the next day. This here is your dream part of your sleep. And this whole time here is when you are connected to spirit, connected to universe. They say in Ayurveda this, and yoga, I guess, this hour before dawn is the most auspicious time of day for you to connect with the universe, for you to connect with the divine. It's called Brahma Muhurta. And it's the time of day that sometimes you rise naturally and you've got energy. For some reason, you're awake. And if you could take advantage of that kind of moment where you wake, you could journal. The rest of the world is still sleeping, is still quiet. They say that there's like the veil between you and the universe is very thin. And the sun is just coming up certain times of the season. I guess high summer, it's probably pretty bright by then, but yeah, tap into that time of day. What happens when you shift between these modes is really important. And I'm going to sort of show you how you already know that this clock exists in your body. This part fascinates me because I can feel the shift in my own body, which is how I can trust this whole rhythm thing. Is the more I can understand it from a physical point of view, from the tactile sensations that I have in my body, then the more I can understand and be aware of it. So when you're in the mind mode, one of the qualities of this Vata is this lightness, right? This idea that things are more subtle, things are more, I'm going to use the word light. They're more mobile, like your thoughts are more free and more mobile. There is a clarity that happens in Vata season or in Vata time of day. Clarity, lightness, mobility to thoughts. There's an ethereal quality where it's just like this nice connectedness. So when you wake, that lightness invites you to wake. It invites you to sort of wake up. Now, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, if you cross over here, Pitta, and all of a sudden at 2 o'clock in the morning you wake up, it's because there's too much lightness. You've got too much Vata accumulating in your body. And this crossover, as soon as the fires die down in your body, you find yourself lying there wide awake at 2 in the morning because there's too much lightness. So then your practice starts to be, how do I add enough heaviness in sort of this stage of my day that it can carry me through the whole night and keep me in sleep mode, because sleep requires a heaviness. Fascinating. This Kapha, it's growth promoting, right? Think of mud, think of earth and water going together. Think of what grows flowers and plants. It also is heavy and dense and thick, and it's more obvious, right? When things are growing, it's not like an idea growing through your head that you're trying to sort of sort out. It's a really obvious thing. It grew today. It's telling you it needs water. It's telling you it needs more sun. Like this plant starts to give you really obvious cues. When kids are growing, they give you really obvious cues. They outgrew their shoes. They need a new pair of shoes. This Kapha, these Kapha qualities are obvious. They are heavy, dense, thick, settled, all those sorts of things. So if you don't wake up with the help of Vata, with the help of that lightness helping you rise, you'll know this because sometimes it happens to you where you press the alarm, you press snooze, you're like, I can't believe I'm awake. It's way too early for me to be up. And then you force yourself to go back to sleep, or you press snooze 10 more times. And then all of a sudden you're trying to get up and it's somewhere in this Kapha time of day and it's impossible. Whatever glimpse of getting up and having it feel easy that you were feeling when you first opened your eyes is gone. And now it feels like you just got to drag your ass out of bed and it feels hard, like you're pushing up against gravity. And it's because you are. The qualities of the day have changed and they are now heavier and denser. Start to think about your teenagers here. Like, is there a reason why these teenage kids don't get up until the fire starts in their bodies again? It might be. It might be that they're in this Kapha period of their lives. They've got a lot of growth happening. And then you give them this Kapha time of day, and it's like uphill battle trying to force through the density and the heaviness to pull themselves up into the day. It might mean that this is where it feels better for them to wake up. Fascinating. So you can feel the shift in the morning, this 10 to 12 kind of shift. Sometimes it is, if you haven't eaten yet, you've got a little bit of hunger happening in your body. It's sometimes for me, it's just like that, okay, like, I gotta get stuff done. Like you might stop wandering around and having your coffee. And I don't know if it's still the reading the paper days or scrolling your Facebook, whatever it is, but that there starts to be a more urgency. Like I gotta get stuff done as you move into this pit of time of day. This is another time that I notice in my body. If I'm not careful, that same thing that can happen at 2 a.m. when you're trying to sleep and all of a sudden if there's too much lightness, you're awake. Think about this fire dying down, this fire that's like, okay, it's burning in your body and it's giving you energy and it's helping digest that biggest meal of the day. And then the fire starts to close down for the day. And all of a sudden you're drained and you've got nothing left in your gas tank and you feel like the most you can do is just go lie on your couch and have that nap. So if you're one of these people where there's big energy shifts and you feel some of these energy shifts happening at these transition spots of your day, then start to notice that. You also might be the kind of person who notices these energy shifts at the transitions of seasons. Does anyone notice that the transition from winter to spring, like there's something happening that feels a bit wobbly? We are getting rid of our winter routines and habits and moving into the summer ones. And same thing happens when we move to summer. We might not feel it as much where we live. Same thing happens when we move summer to fall, fall to winter. We might feel off balance because we're not noticing, or we are noticing the effects of nature. We're not calling it that or mitigating that or balancing for that. We're just feeling it. And this is the thing that Ayurveda starts to teach us, is that the more we can understand these cycles, the more we can understand what's going on here, then we give ourselves a language for that feeling that's happening inside. Sometimes it's a symptom. Sometimes we can actually pinpoint it to a symptom in our bodies that, oh my gosh, I'm having an energy crash in the afternoon all the time right here. Or we might feel that I've got a really snotty nose and congested system happening, and it's always happens this time of year. So we start to see and being able to give these symptoms an explanation from nature. And when we can do that, then we can create a balancing choice. So if we are experiencing too much hot in our Canadian heat wave, we might notice that we're making balancing choices in our food. We might be having more raw food. We might be preparing more cold meals. We might be not eating as much because we don't want that fire in our belly to be getting big and strong and supportive of big meals. Whereas in our winter season here, we can dig into the lasagnas and the heavy casserole type meals, hot cooked food, really with ease, because it's good for us to get that big, strong fire building in our bodies. And so we're used to that. We're used to that winter routine. And we mitigate for that. We create balancing practice for it. What I've learned about Ayurveda is that all of this stuff is intuitive. And yet it's intuitive in a way that I've never really paid attention to it before. And now that I can pay attention to it, I can make better choices. This is giving me a vocabulary, and the vocabulary is giving me awareness. As I understand the cycle of nature, I can sync with it and create those efficiencies in my own system. So that's what I invite you to do. That's what I invite anyone who wants to explore Ayurveda to practice with me. When I work with a year-long course. We take this and we study the habits and the rhythms that happen with every season. Where I live, there are 4 specific seasons. So we go through the habits: fall, winter, spring, and summer. And we notice how we can mitigate, how we can balance, how we can create choices and supportive routines for each season. So if you're someone who believes that, you go on a diet and this diet is good for 12 months a year, wrong. If you're someone who believes like, this is my exercise routine and I have to do this exercise routine 12 months a year, wrong. And what's so wonderful about that is that instead of you going against what your body's telling you, all of a sudden you're noticing, oh, my body's not telling me that I need to go for a 10K run today. And yet you might find in this Kapha springtime, your body's going, go, 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 get out there, go. And right now it's going, no, not interested. Unless you go at like 5 a.m. when it's still cool enough. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to open this up to questions. You guys can ask me anything you need. If you're watching this recording later, then thank you so much. Please feel free to write in your questions. Know that this is what I do. I believe in this. I believe in this crazy little cycle behind me, and I believe that it is super supportive of us. It is something that helps us decode and understand the feedback that our body's giving us, because our body is part of nature, because our system is nature. So our body gives us this feedback and we can learn to understand it. We can learn to support it, given this vocabulary, given this paradigm of information, this lexicon of Ayurveda. So if you're interested in learning more, we register new people at the beginning of each season, beginning of summer, beginning of fall, beginning of winter, beginning of spring. So there's a prep school that you do before you start. And then once you get going, you start in the beginning of your season, going through the habits, and you stay with me for a full year so that you can develop your own system, your own routines, the rituals that you need to keep you strong and healthy. All right. Okay. I'll open it up to questions. Thanks for joining me.